Well, hello there. Welcome. I'm super excited to be sharing this training with you. It's my complete process, my three-step process for how I healed my own trauma completely and improve my relationships. So I have not been this excited to share any training in months and months. So here we go. I have a little PowerPoint for you. Let's get into it. Okay. Thank you for showing up and being here. All right, so this is the emotional resilience code, how to overcome your triggers, master conflict, and strengthen any relationship, no matter how long you've been stuck, no matter what the circumstances. Okay. This is what I used as well. So let me share who this is for and who it's not for, so you know if you're in the right place. It's not for you if you're just curious and looking for more information. Why? Because information is cheap. I often say, if information was all we needed, in this age of Google, we should all have perfect lives, right? Information is readily available. And yet, mental health and relationships are at an all-time low. Information is not what you need. You need a new system. You need transformation. So if you're here to just sort of listen on the side while you're folding laundry and try to get a couple of tidbits or tools or, hacks, this is not for you. You might as well just close the laptop or your phone and go do something fun, right? This is for you if you're actually committed to listening, taking notes, and implementing. All right, it's also not for you if you are here just to vent about other people being the problem in your life. I'm not saying other people are not sometimes the problem. They are sometimes. But it's kind of like if you had a flat tire, right? You might want to call a friend and complain about it, and sometimes that feels good. But I want to be the person who comes in and helps you remove the tire and change the tires and put on a safe one so that you can continue your journey and get to where you want to go in a safe, effective way. So if you're here just to vent, you probably have friends or a cousin or a mom or someone else that you can vent to. But if you're here to actually transform and create a better life that aligns with your values, then you're in the right place. Yeah. So who is it for? Number one, it's for women leaders, professionals. Most of my clients are physicians, lawyers, engineers, accountants, professors, basically women who value learning and growth and are quite successful in their professions, even if they're temporarily taking a break. Okay, that's who we work with. And number two, many of my clients, when they come to me, they're feeling really emotionally dysregulated and sensitive and fragile, right? Small things upset them. They take things personally. They ruminate on things. They feel like they're walking on eggshells or getting into arguments, repetitive arguments with in their relationships. And number three, most of my clients have tried to solve it. They've downloaded books. They've listened to Audible books. They've listened to podcasts. They've vented to their friends to try to get some help. They've often gone in and out of therapy, sometimes for years. They've been in and out of talk therapy. And even though it seems to feel good in the moment, right? Because you're venting and somebody is there to listen non-judgmentally and validate you, which feels good. But they notice that 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, they're still struggling with the same problems and the same patterns. So if any of these resonate with you, you're in the right place. This is the person that we help. Okay. So before I actually tell you about the three parts of the emotional resilience code, some of you may not know who I am, and I want to share a little bit about my story so you know, why did I end up doing this work? Of all the things that I could have done to make a living on this planet, why this? Well, this is a picture of me when I was a year and a half old, I think. Look at those chubby cheeks. And this is my mom. She was married to my dad with an arranged marriage. She was 15 and a half, and he was 29 when they got married. And so huge age gap. She was really a baby. And so I was raised in a home where she was kind of like another child, right? And my parents had a really uncomfortable, emotionally dysregulated, not healthy relationship. They would fight, they would yell, they wouldn't talk to each other for weeks. It was very tense and uncomfortable. My dad was very harsh with us. My mom was like another child, like I said, in the house. So this all culminated in my mom dying by suicide when I was 18. This is a picture of me when I was 19. I'm in my first year of med school. In India, we go straight from high school to med school. So this is my first year of college, really. And it should have been one of the happiest times of my life. But as you can tell in that picture, I am like spaced out, right? I'm not really there. I didn't know what I felt. I had no sensation below my neck. I was just surviving and reacting day by day. I mean, med school is stressful as it is, but I had no tools at all, no sense of safety or steadiness within me, and really struggled for years and years after that. It changed the course of my life and my siblings' lives as well. And by the time 2009 came around, I was in Boston doing a fellowship in psychiatry at Harvard, the pinnacle of Western neuroscience. And even though I was learning a lot, right? So why information is not the key, because I had all the information at my fingertips, the best, experts teaching me stuff, and I was supposedly helping my patients, but I myself really was not okay. I was shut down. I was emotionally numb and fragile and quite reactive. By the time I was 31, I'd been through 3 really important relationships breaking down, and not just having a breakup, but really painful, labile, toxic breakups. And I'd also been married and divorced by then. And I remember one time, I remember crossing a street in Boston in the middle of my fellowship, and I had this thought that if a car hit me right now and I died, it wouldn't be the worst thing. I remember thinking that, and it really shocked me. It shook me up. The casualness with which I had that thought, and my mind actually believed that that was the truth. And I remember feeling like almost a sense of relief if that would have happened. And really shook me, because when my mom died by suicide, I promised myself that I'd never do that, because I saw the devastation it created for those of us left behind. And so crossing that street that day was a wake-up call. And I said to myself, this is not working. I am at the ivory tower of Western neuroscience, and I haven't been able to heal. How can I heal my patients if I haven't been able to heal? Something is missing. I need to do something else. And so I went back to my Eastern wisdom roots. So even though I had actually been raised in India, I never explored Eastern wisdom practices at all. I was very focused on, the Western way of thinking, getting into med school, getting to residency, getting into fellowship, and getting to Harvard and this and that, right? So I took a year off and I went back and started exploring Eastern wisdom practices. And my mind was blown. It was the first time that I started seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, And then that started a multi-year journey where I was learning everything that I could. I remember recently, I think it was about a year and a half ago, I actually wrote down and tabulated all the different retreats and methods and approaches and tools that I had learned in those years of searching. And the list came to 172. 172. Inside of that, there was 7 silent meditation retreats, some of them in the Himalayas. I mean, I dove in with both feet. Okay. And learning and practicing all of this, I realized that some things were more powerful, more effective than others, and that they all seem to fit into three core sort of buckets. And once I figured that out, I dove deeper into each of those buckets, and my life started to make sense, right? My emotions felt calmer. I felt more confident and clear and courageous. My relationships started having a more healthy. It's not that other people changed. It's not that I wasn't getting triggered, but my way of approaching things completely changed over a period of time. And that's when I realized we need Eastern wisdom and Western neuroscience. We need both. We need an integration. That was my, oh my God, eureka moment, right? And here's the other thing I realized is that a lot of high achievers, including myself, including my dad, including many of the clients that come to us, we have hidden trauma. And I mean, when I say hidden, it's because we have suppressed the trauma by using our intellect and our success professionally and academically, right? So we were able to sort of run away from some of our troubles by succeeding. But eventually it catches up to us. And the way it catches up is usually because we feel depressed and blah and purposeless and emotionally fragile and reactive, and our relationship seems to have the same up and downs and conflicts and misunderstandings, right? So when that happens, we're like, oh, okay, I need more information, because that's what saved us earlier, learning and information, right? So we dive into more talking and analyzing and learning and gathering information. But here's the thing, all of that is in your brain, which is your central nervous system. But 90% of your nervous system is actually below the neck. And we don't learn anything about how to manage 90% of our inner state, right? The other problem with learning and analyzing and thinking and problem solving is that all of that gets stored in the prefrontal cortex. Okay, that's the part of your brain that's just behind your eyes. But when you get triggered, when your feelings get hurt, or you feel abandoned or angry or panicked or whatever, when you're really experiencing emotional turmoil, research shows that we lose access to the prefrontal cortex. It's actually called flipping the lid, right? You cannot access any of that information that you've stored in there. This is why we go to therapy and we learn all these things and we take notes and we go, yeah, I should use I statements. But then the next time we get triggered, we do the same thing we've always done, because our limbic system, which is the survival brain, takes over. We lose access to the prefrontal cortex. We have no way to regulate our nervous system below the neck. And so we do the same old stuff that we always did, which lands us in the same troubles. So I think of this like if you were driving in a snowstorm in the dark and you didn't have windshield wipers. Imagine that, right? You might have the most fanciest car. You might have the best GPS system or a co-pilot telling you exactly where to go. You might be driving along the most scenic route. You're still going to have an accident. You're still going to put your life and other people's lives in danger. You have to start with wiping the windshield. And that's what nervous system mastery and physiological regulation is. It's wiping the windshield. When you wipe the windshield, doesn't mean that you're suddenly in Hawaii and everything is la la la. You're still in a snowstorm. But now at least you can see clearly. You won't bump into and crash into other cars. You can see where the exit is. You can get safely to where you need to go. Right? Very important to start with wiping your windshield. And many clients, by the time they come to me, they've had years of the windshield wiper not working. They've had years of accumulation of stuff, so much so that they don't even know what is reality. They see everything through their trauma and their stories and their emotional hurts. So that's what I came to. Aha, lasting change requires both the mind and the body. It requires Western neuroscience and Eastern wisdom practices. And there's a sequence to how we become emotionally resilient. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Okay. So the three things that I remember, I said, I noticed that of the 172 things that I learned, there were 3 buckets. And the sequencing also matters. The first bucket is rewiring your nervous system. As I said, wiping the windshield. Okay. And so the way we do that is what I call the 4C formula. And that's one of the things that I teach inside emotional resilience course. And so the 4C stand for calm, curious, compassionate, and courageous. We rewire your nervous system such that in any conversation, even when you're triggered, you feel, not just pretend, you don't force yourself to, you actually feel in your body calm, curious, compassionate, and courageous. That's literally the first thing we have to do. Without this, you are cruising down a highway at full speed at night in a snowstorm, blind. Okay. So that's really the first thing, right? There's no way around this. People who go through our resilience process, they will, like, almost every few days, somebody will send me a message saying, I literally don't feel anything about stuff about the situation that used to make me crazy. I don't feel it. I just feel okay. It's almost like a thorn that was poking me is not there anymore. That's the power of rewiring your nervous system. Okay. Then the next of the 3 buckets, the second bucket is going to the core wound that is causing the triggers in the first place and processing and fully dissolving that core wound. Right? So let me share with you an analogy that might be helpful. I think of triggers. I'm not talking about if you're a little bit upset or annoyed or a little worried. Those are all normal emotions, right? I'm talking about if you're panicked, if you're rageful, if you're so scared that you're walking on eggshells, if you are so overwhelmed that you can't think straight and you feel foggy and paralyzed. That's a trigger. And when you are that triggered, it means that there is a source to those triggers. And that source is the core wounds that you or that life gave you in your younger years. Okay. So think about it like this. Let's say that someone came into my room right now. I'm in my office. Let's say someone walked in and called me a giraffe. They said, Kavi, you're a giraffe. Okay. I most likely would be confused. I might be curious. I might think that they were joking, or I might even think that they lost their mind. But I certainly wouldn't be hurt and angry and devastated. But now think about if, let's say, when I was in high school, maybe I had a growth spurt and I was the tallest in the class and I had a crush on somebody in class. And one day I was walking by and this crush and a group of his or her friends, they were teasing me and calling me a giraffe. And I overheard that. Now, if someone calls me a giraffe, I am going to have a stronger reaction, almost an irrational reaction. Why? Because I have that core wound. Okay, if I didn't have that core wound, I might be a little annoyed, I might be curious, I might be like, what are you talking about? But I would not be devastated and shooken up and paralyzed. See what I mean? So the way I help people actually process and heal triggers is through what I call the IP process. IP is inner parent. Okay. inside all of us, there is the inner child parts. Those are the angry, scared, paralyzed, fear of abandonment kind of parts. Then there's the inner teenager parts. Those are the parts that make us, be angry or passive aggressive, walk on eggshells. It's basically the way we cope. But we also, all of us, have the inner parent. That's your wise part of your mind. You always have access to that, kind of like the sunshine never goes away from the solar system, right? It's always there in the sky. You just might not be able to see it sometimes because it's a very cloudy day. You don't need to become wise. You need to dissolve your core wounds so that your sunshine naturally shines. Okay. So that's the inner parent process. And what happened to me was when I used this, every time I got triggered, I was able to process and completely heal the core wound associated with the trigger. So every time I got triggered, I actually got stronger and more whole and more confident and steady. It's almost like the triggers themselves were a gift because they made me better. They didn't set me back, they actually moved me forward. That's the way to deal with triggers, not tolerate them, not analyze them, but use them as medicine to heal your own core wounds. And that's what we do inside resilience program, right? It's called the inner parent process. And then the third part is then you're ready to actually have different kind of conversations. Once you've reset your nervous system into the 4C and you've dissolved the core wounds and you know how to do that, anytime a trigger comes up, you get stronger. Now you're ready to have conversations using what I call the non-reactive frame. I want to tell you guys a story about this. A few days ago, inside of our resilience program, I wanted to demonstrate the non-reactive frame, right? And so I asked one of our clients inside of the program to take on the role of my dad. And I shared with them what my dad used to say, right? He used to say things like, you're a disappointment, you've always been selfish, even your horoscopes early on told us that you'd be the most selfish child, you abandon people, right? He would say very harsh things. One time he said, go write in your diary that I am a bad person. Okay. So very, very harsh, right? And so I shared what he would say, his beliefs, his tone, his body language, his words. And I asked one of our clients to take on the role of my dad and be even more like rigid than even what I was describing. Like, do not give me an out at all. Try to really stay in the harshness. And I asked for a volunteer, and one of our clients, Kayla, she volunteered. And she did a great job. I asked her to do this. I said, can you like stay really strict and not don't budge at all. And so she took that on, and she actually she dug her heels in. Okay. She was as harsh, if not slightly more harsh than my dad was. And we had a 15-minute conversation with everybody listening, right, in the program. And by the end of 15 minutes, because I was in the non-reactive frame, there are 5 steps to being in the non-reactive frame. And I was doing the non-reactive frame, and I didn't know what exactly she'd say. I just gave her a gist, but I let her take the conversation wherever she wants. And we did this for 15 minutes. By the end of those 15 minutes, she couldn't but help say, I'm sorry for what I said. And she said, let's have some lunch and figure out a way to create a solution that feels okay to both of us. She came to that, even though she was trying really hard not to budge. Right? It was really cool to watch. And that's what I did with my own dad. Several years before he passed, I was able to completely heal our relationship. When he died, we were close. And so that's what I demonstrated. And I can tell you, if I can do this with my dad, who had horrific trauma in his own life, I can't even tell you some of the things that he went through. So he was very, very harsh and reactive. If I can do that with my dad, and I can teach it to hundreds of women leaders now, you can do it too with any relationship, any topic, any conversation. Okay, so those are the 3 parts of the emotional resilience code. So that's what the emotional resilience code is, right? Down here below is nervous system mastery, the 4 C's. Then it is actually finding and healing the core wounds and dissolving them so that over time you have nothing that you get triggered by. I've come to a point when I don't get triggered. Like, I can't remember the last time I was actually triggered. And I used to be triggered several times a day. That was my reality. And finally, how to have powerful conversations, effective conversations in the non-reactive frame, no matter how reactive the other person is, no matter how stuck that relationship has been, you can shift it 180 degrees. Okay. So using this process, I was able to stop taking things personally, which I was the queen of taking everything personally. Okay. Rejection and criticism, which still happened to me, no longer trigger self-doubt or overwhelm for me. I can think clearly in any situation. I can make decisions that are aligned with my values without getting dysregulated. I feel free and focused and in control of my life. This is the shocking thing. I used to ruminate for hours about my past. I do not ruminate at all, like at all. My mind doesn't even go there. Shocking to me. I can't believe how my life has transformed. I can now share my truth vulnerably and courageously without getting mad or shutting down or being scared. Eventually, I left traditional psychiatry when I realized that the Western neuroscience model alone is not enough, and traditional talk therapy just keeps people in the same patterns. And I built a business that uses this model that I shared with you that's worked for me and has now helped 700 plus women leaders and professionals. I used to yo-yo with my weight, 30 pounds up and 30 pounds down, 10 pounds up and 10 pounds down, 20 pounds up. I mean, it was a lifelong struggle. Using this process, I've lost 30 pounds and maintained it for years now. And I used to think of myself as not a creative person. I used to think that I was an intellectual person, but not a creative person. And now I'm a watercolor painter. I'm writing my own book. I'm working also on writing a children's book. I have so much creativity that I had suppressed because of my own inability to regulate my emotions. And so much more has happened in my life because of this process. But most importantly, for me at least, I have healed intergenerational trauma. And I'm passing on a better legacy to my daughter. This is the number 1 line in the sand for me. This is why I do what I do. If I didn't learn this, sorry, and master this, excuse me, I would have passed on the same patterns that I was raised with. I couldn't help it. Even though I would still love my child the same as I love her today, I would have passed on the wounds even if I didn't want to. And here's something, if you're a parent, and I want to tell you, whether your child is 5 or 15 or 27, if you are still alive and they are still alive, you still have a chance to pass on a better legacy. If my dad had learned and mastered this, if he'd been willing or even aware of this, if he had done this even when he was 70, he would have died with a better relationship with my siblings. He barely had any relationship with my siblings when he died. It's really sad. He was crying in the ICU about this, but it's too late. So if you are alive and they are still alive, even if you're in your 60s or 70s, you can change your legacy. You can pass on a better legacy than the one you inherited. Okay. All right. So I want to share some of our amazing clients. Like I said, we work with hundreds and hundreds of people. This is Erica. She said, I just started the second month of the program and I've laid to rest issues that I've been ruminating on for 15 to 20 years. Dude, that's serious healing. This is Prachi. She said, it has impacted my life 360 degrees. Our course is actually called Emotional Resilience 360. So it's very fitting. Marley's here says, my world has changed. I started at rock bottom facing imminent divorce. I can now say that my life has improved in all areas. I'm happier than I've been in years. Laura had such a troubled relationship with her mother-in-law, barely a kind word between them for 15 years. And she went through our process and she says, okay, seriously, are you on a mission from God? More later, but briefly, my mother-in-law visit went the best it has ever gone from all viewpoints. It was a game changer. This is Param. Remember I told you about the inner child, teenager, and parent? I taught her how to heal her inner child so that she can release those core wounds. And she says that inner child work that we did has transformed my ability to stay out of hurt and rumination. Param used to say that she would get stuck in rumination for hours. And notice she's not saying, I am controlling or managing my ruminations better. She's saying, I'm out of them. I don't even go there. I don't even go into it anymore. That's the power of healing and releasing the core wounds. I could go on and on and on. There's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testimonials. We have pages and pages and pages. I'll stop because of time. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But yeah, I could go on and on. Hundreds. And I've been really fortunate that I've been able to share this with the world and see the impact it has had on me and on all these amazing people that work with us and their children and their families. It's pretty cool. So that's the emotional resilience code. If you are ready to heal your trauma triggers fully, completely, master conflict and strengthen any relationship, no matter how stuck or problematic it is, in just 90 days, right? This is not a go in and out of therapy for the next 10 years, vaguely talking about the same stuff. It's a very specific process. It's a 90-day process. And if you're ready and want to learn more about this program, there's a link down below. If you click on that link, it'll take you to Facebook Messenger and you can send me a private message with the word resilience. And I'll send you more information about the program. And then you can decide if you want to do it or not. It's totally up to you, right? So even if you're just curious, feel free to send me a message and I'll share more information with you. If you're not ready, that is totally fine too. Down even further in this document, there's a bunch of other videos that you can, hopefully it'll help you. You can learn more about my process, my approach, and my story. So feel free to check those out if that's where you are. But if you are ready to really become the person that you know you have the capacity to be and transform your relationships and create the life that you want in just 90 days, send me the word resilience on Facebook Messenger and we'll chat about the program and then you can decide, like I said. So that's the emotional resilience code. Thank you for spending time with me. I love you. You can do anything and create anything that you want in your life.